Well, hasn't gone too wide, and there the perfect execution of a passing manoeuvre from Bryan Herta as he goes into third position. Vasser back down to fourth, and Herta now goes chasing after Christian Fittipaldi.
Great move, as you say, by Bryan Herta. Clinical move there, down the inside. Jimmy Vasser, no chance of fending off that attack from Bryan Herta. Great friends, these two, both from California originally. But it's good to see that, Jimmy Vasser's not about to do anything stupid. He could see that Bryan Herta had a clear shot at him. No point to do anything silly. He doesn't make it terribly easy. He makes it squeeze him down the inside a little bit. But Herta had the momentum there, cleanly through into the corner and takes over third position from Jimmy Vasser.
Two drivers who've worked their way up through the ranks, Jeremy, and indeed you've been involved a bit in their progress through the ranks, bringing both of these guys over to Europe at formative times in their career.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we do a thing called the Team USA Scholarship, sponsored by Valvoline, is the main sponsor here, and also Tasman Motorsports. Steve Horn, a great mentor of the program. There is a move again. There is the move again of Bryan Herta getting past Jimmy Vasser. Since 1990, we were doing that program. Jimmy Vasser actually was the first recipient of the scholarship in 1990, went over and did the Formula Ford Festival with Lannon Racing. Had a bit of a disastrous time, but he learned a lot and he really enjoyed the experience. The following year, Bryan Herta also went across into the Formula Ford Festival at Brands Hatch and really created an excellent impression. He finished 11th in the final and really did a fine job that weekend for Team USA.
Well, it's great to see these drivers having had the opportunity to come over to Europe and race, and now doing such a good job in their home series. Vasser, it's being reported on the radio, suffering from a fair degree of understeer and also trying to look after the fuel mileage a little bit. That is going to be a big issue here this afternoon, looking after the fuel because of the various different pit stops that have been made and some guys coming in early. This track does not normally see many full course yellows. Having said that, of course, we've had one already today. We've only ever had two full course yellows at this track in the 16 years it's been running. Two in each race, that is, or as many as two in any race. We've seen a lot more yellow flags this year at some tracks like Portland, for example. Last time out, Detroit, we saw a lot of yellow flags in the early stages of that race. And let's just hope that it can keep it fairly clean and that we can watch the race develop as those guys who've dropped to the back of the field now try and fight their way up the order. They're the man running in sixth place, second in the championship at the moment, remember. 5 points only the gap between himself and Paul Tracy. We've got the race in Canada coming up next weekend, Toronto, and I'm sure that Greg Moore would love to be the championship leader as they go into the Toronto race and snatch it from Tracy here at Cleveland. At the moment, Paul Tracy's only just in the points, down in 12th place. And meanwhile, we've got problems for PJ Jones, who comes into the pits.
Shane PJ been doing a very good job again. Once again, he was the quickest of the Toyota drivers there for All-American races. Castrol and Jockey, the sponsors of his Reynard Toyota. Looks like he might possibly be in for routine service, but I think it's a little bit early for that after his having stopped under that previous caution. So perhaps a problem for PJ Jones. Shane, nice job he's been doing.
That's right. Let's look back at this battle once again. Nice battle going on here. Vasser, Pruitt, Moore with Ribeiro, Unser and Carpentier not far behind as well. This is the most exciting part of the race at the moment, with the leader, Gilles de Ferran, an advantage of 1.8 seconds over Christian Fittipaldi. So you're not missing anything up front at the moment. De Ferran in control of this race. Christian Fittipaldi keeping him honest, but not really being able to challenge. Herta now in a fairly lonely third. So it is this battle for fourth position that is the main focus of the race. And when you've got someone like Greg Moore in the middle of it, well, you can expect some fireworks, because this guy is a hard racer. He will take any opportunity that is half given to him. He'll be through a gap just as quickly as you can see it. And Moore now trying to line up Scott Pruitt for an opportunity to go through.
Yeah, we're coming into the turn 9 chicane there. Quick flick left and right there. They're taking the corner at about well over 100 miles an hour. Eyes there on Scott Pruitt, with Greg Moore behind him, Andre Ribeiro behind that. There's car number 2, that's Alonso Jr. Behind him, Patrick Carpentier. A little bit farther back there, Parker Johnstone and Michael Andretti. And there's some very tight racing going in there in the middle of this race. We've got 44 laps in the books now, so coming up to half the distance.
Halfway point, and Gilles de Ferran is still our race leader at the moment as this battle rages behind. The red car of Jimmy Vasser still leading the group. And then the orange and yellow car of Scott Pruitt. The blue and white car, there it is, of Greg Moore, the young Canadian who's taken his first 2 wins in the series this year. Dramatic victories they were as well. One in Milwaukee, one in Detroit for this car. And Greg Moore, the young Canadian, following in the footsteps, I suppose, of Jacques Villeneuve to a large extent. There, PJ Jones down in the pits. Let's see if we can hear anything.
around. I think we're over 10 miles an hour off on the straightaway right now, and it's pretty hard to overcome and try and pass people, you know, with that kind of deficit.
All right, thank you.
I hope you could hear that. The sound level a little bit low for us, but PJ Jones out with gearbox problems. It's been confirmed, and disappointment for the American racer, part of the All-American Racers run by Dan Gurney, who've had a bit of a tough season, it has to be said. That Toyota engine still not really on a par with the others, as he was explaining there. Back to the battle that's going on. Scott Pruitt is at the head of that little group at the moment. Jimmy Vasser seems to have escaped a bit further up the road in the Target Ganassi car. So then it's Pruitt, Greg Moore. Behind Moore is Andre Ribeiro, the Brazilian, in the car with its shocking yellow nose cone. You can't really see it at the moment because it's tucked in so closely behind Greg Moore's car. There he goes, and Alonso Jr. behind. At least Ribeiro will be happy to be in a group that's in the top 10 and in with a chance. He's in 7th place at the moment. He's had a torrid season in the Lola chassis, first race out in the Reynard, and he's putting in a fine effort here, but he's got Alonso Jr. there in the white and red Marlboro Penske right behind, to take advantage of any mistakes or slip-ups that he might make.
Yes, it's still fairly, you know, still a long way to go. Just over halfway through this 90-lap race. So no one's really wanting to make too much of a move, just in case they get it wrong and lose more ground than they try and make up. So there's still another round of pit stops to go. They want to make sure that they have the fuel mileage, of course, to get through to just ensure they have to make one more stop. It might be fairly close for a few of these guys. And I think most of these guys will be running the car fairly lean on fuel at the moment, just trying to eke out that fuel so they can get through with just one more pit stop.
Yes, it looks as though everyone's going to keep things under control a little bit for the moment, looking after fuel and then build it up for an exciting climax towards the end. There's the shell car of Brian Herter, the bespectacled youngster in the Bobby Rahal team. The two of them working very similarly, look fairly similar as well, in a sort of junior version of Bobby Rahal, but they fit in together perfectly well. They've really created an excellent team between themselves. And Brian Herter in third, one of the quickest cars on the track at the moment. His last lap, in fact, was quicker than any other of the front runners, and so Brian Herter catching up a little bit to Christian Fittipaldi in 2nd place, but the gap's still around about 3.5 seconds between himself and Christian.
Yeah, it was almost 5 seconds about 5 laps ago, so he's just chipping away a little bit, Brian Herter, able to move in just a little bit towards Christian Fittipaldi, and certainly drawing well away now from Jimmy Vasser. He's pulled out 5 seconds since he passed him just 7 laps ago. So there is Brian Herter, and quite a way gap there to the 4th place car of Jimmy Vasser and the rest of that large pack behind him.
So Gilles de France still our race leader here. And there Christian Fittipaldi running in 2nd place. He must be feeling the heat a little bit by now, with some 50 laps completed out of the 90 scheduled here, and Fittipaldi still not fully up to fitness with that broken leg now much recovered but still not fully recovered, and his training schedule of course very limited because of that, and he must be feeling it now, Jeremy, a little bit, the pain. At least he's not too far behind de Ferran, so that can keep him going a bit.
That's right, that'll keep the adrenaline pumping, and that'll certainly help Christian Fittipaldi. Really is doing a fabulous job once again this afternoon, particularly as we talked about yesterday. Had a fairly nasty crash about 10 days ago in testing at Road America when a front push rod broke on the car under braking, and that caused him to have quite a nasty accident at turn 5 at Road America, but able to get away with that one. Back in action here, there he is waving acknowledgement to, I think that was Hiro Matsushita as he went past him to put a lap on the 24 car. Yeah,
I think it might have been Matsushita, it might have been Salles actually. I think he's down there somewhere as well. So Walter Salles, another Brazilian, who's not going quite so well now. He's dropped down the order. We mentioned him earlier that he'd lost a lot of ground. Let me just update you a bit on some of the drivers you might be interested in. For example, let's just run down the order really. You can see it in the top left-hand corner of your screen. You can see Dario Franchitti's down in 15th position. And Marc Blundell is down in 20th place, and that really largely as a result of their deciding to stop when they did. And that put him right down behind the others. Zanardi, our early race leader, he's down in 16th position. 60.4 was his last lap, but that's pretty much the same sort of time as the leaders are doing. Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fittipaldi doing much the same sort of speeds. There you can see the fast speeds at the moment from Fittipaldi around the track, 171 on down to this point, then accelerates out of this one into the next kink at 114 miles per hour, then accelerates further up the next straight towards the right-left flick as they go from one runway to another runway and travelling a lot quicker than the aeroplanes normally do at this point on the ground.
Yeah, big shuffling here for that big group of cars dicing for 5th position. They actually all got held up behind Hiro Matsushita as they came out of turns 9 and 10, and a big fan out down under braking at turn 1. Pandemonium down there, and Scott Pruitt lost a place there to Greg Moore, and there is Alanson Jr. tucked close in behind the car of Scott Pruitt, trying to take away, that would be 6th position.
So this has all changed things around a little bit. That group that we were watching so much early on, look how close it is, all the cars. Ribeiro's right at the back of the group, just being passed by Tracy as well. Ribeiro lost a couple of places when we left you there. He dropped down behind Carpentier and Unser, and now he seems to be losing more ground. On board with Michael Andretti now, who's in 11th place, or he was last time round, although things have all changed a little bit with that gaggle of cars sorting themselves out. Johnston gets past Matsushita, and there the Panasonic car of Matsushita is now the next to be lapped by Michael Andretti. He slips through safely and still tows Paul Tracy along behind him. So these two desperate to make up for the lost ground earlier in the race when they both came into the pits when they weren't supposed to, and now running in 10th and 11th places as we're getting towards the pit window now for the second stop. So we're still a few laps away from them, but it won't be too long before you start to see some other cars coming into the pits and make the second round of stops, and then they've got to try and squeeze that fuel allowance right the way through to the checkered flag at the end of it all. Up through that left-right sequence of the backside of the track, Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy, with Andre Ribeiro now having to drop down to 12th position. Bozell 13th, Rahal 14th, Franchitti in 15th, and still holding off, fending off Zanardi, who's just put in a quick lap actually. Zanardi, a 59.370 from Alex Zanardi. That I think is probably the fastest lap we've seen in the race so far.
I think it is. His teammates were running fairly well too. Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herter, the last 2 laps has not made any impression at all on Christian Fittipaldi. In fact, he's dropped back now to some 5 seconds behind the Brazilian driver. Meanwhile, Christian Fittipaldi has actually inched a little bit closer to Gilles de Ferran, just 1 second between those first 2 cars.
Well, there, we're just taking a little look at who's watching Adrian Fernandez. 75 relatives he's worked out are watching him back home in Mexico City, and they're watching it on TV Azteca. It's lunchtime for them as they watch this race and cheering on Adrian Fernandez, who of course has had such a difficult season this year. Teammate to Andre Ribeiro using the Lola chassis. We've mentioned it many times how much they're struggling. But Adrian, a winner last year. It's almost 12 months now since his last win, actually. That was in Toronto last year, and it hasn't really been anywhere near winning a race so far this year. But he's still got plenty of support down there in Mexico, and he's still got a bit of support in the UK as well, because Adrian was a racer in the British Formula 4 Championship some years ago, and I'm sure there's a few guys watching back in England who remember Adrian's efforts with fondness, and are hoping that he gets a bit more luck as the rest of the season progresses. So he's down in 20th place at the moment, long way down, not really in with a chance of getting anywhere here this afternoon. The leader's completed 53 laps.